Welcome to Taking Stock. I'm Amanda Lang. Coming up on the show, G7 finance ministers meet in Canada this week with trade turmoil on the agenda. And Canada's pension plan is large and stable. We'll ask the CEO whether anything needs to change. Plus, steel producers are taking the brunt of tariffs again. Is there a better way? That's all ahead. First, for the week that was in business, it's time for the briefs. Finance ministers and central bankers from the G7 nations met in Alberta this week in a prep meeting ahead of the leaders' G7 meeting there in June. The group avoided any contentious language around tariffs and opted instead for a show of consensus on other issues, including economic security and artificial intelligence. Inflation ran hotter than expected in April once the effect of the carbon tax is removed. The headline rate of 1.7% masked underlying price pressures that could keep the Bank of Canada from lowering rates in early June. CPI median rose 3.2% in April from 2.8% in March.
From a Bank of Canada perspective, it does complicate the easing. It does delay it. I was thinking there was a possibility of an ease at the next meeting. I am now not thinking there will be an ease at the next meeting by the Bank of Canada because of CPI.
Bond rating service Moody's became the latest to downgrade the U.S. debt this week, a reflection of concern about mounting deficits and higher planned spending. The downgrade could make future borrowing by the U.S. government more expensive. The downgrade comes as the U.S. Congress is poised to pass a spending bill that includes an extension of tax cuts for the wealthy that will cost more than $3 trillion. Honda is the latest automaker to scale back its electric vehicle plans. The Japanese firm said weak demand for EVs is prompting a shift to hybrid vehicles, and it's reducing its forecast for EV market share by 2030. This week, Stellantis also delayed indefinitely its plan to produce EV models of the Dodge Charger Daytona in Windsor, Ontario. Subaru of America is the latest car maker to raise prices. Subaru stopped short of blaming tariffs but cited market conditions for the increase, which could add between $750 and $2,200 US to the price of its vehicles. Earlier this month, Ford raised prices on 3 models made in Mexico by $2,000. And those are your business briefs. This week's meeting of G7 finance ministers and central bankers was overshadowed perhaps by concerns about global trade. But what should G7 countries be working on? Matthew Holmes is Chief of Public Policy at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for being with us.
Great to be with you, Amanda.
So a bit of an elephant in the room here, but obviously it's important when the G7 comes together. From the point of view of the Canadian economy and what we're focused on, what do you think we want to achieve at these series of G7 meetings?
Well, it's an important moment for Canada in 2025 to have the G7 presidency. Obviously, none of us expected or hoped for the global trade war that we're currently living through. But I think Canada has a role to play here in establishing the importance and convening different players from around the world who have been traditional allies to really establish the importance of a multilateral approach about common goals and objectives and the importance of these liberal democracies to continue to be leaders in the world from an economic perspective and to work together on what that world trade order looks like. This is really the origin of the G7. 50 years ago, it came together to deal with inflation crisis, with energy crisis, and the lack of a rules-based system or a rules-based system in the Bretton Woods example that was falling apart. And to say we are the leading economies, we have a role to play to sort of set the terms and create the certainty that business needs. And I think Canada can help play that role at this time of great uncertainty.
And of course, there are a lot of things globally that we need to be talking about that are on the agenda, things like artificial intelligence, like security amongst countries. The overshadow, though, of the trade relationship feels large. How important is it to just kind of keep things on an even keel as we head towards the June meeting where we do get the leaders together?
Well, I think it's really important, and dialogue is essential to any commerce, right? You don't have commerce, you don't have trade without that first dialogue that happens in a room. And so the fact that we have these leading economies together, obviously they have some differences. They have some tensions. There's the elephant in the room of the trade war and the tariff regime that's being introduced by the US administration. But the fact that they're all there, they're sitting around the table, they're agreeing on the things they can agree on is important. And when we saw the foreign ministers meet earlier this year in Charlevoix, we also saw that they actually came out of that meeting with a fairly robust list of things they'd agree on. Of course, there were things that were missing and others that people might have wished that they could come to consensus on. But the fact that they're there, that senior representatives of all those governments are participating, and that they're leading towards this leaders summit in June is in its own right very important at this time.
So good to have you, Matthew. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on, Amanda.
Matthew Holmes is Chief of Public Policy at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. Coming up, Canada's pension plan is large and stable with growing power in the world. We're talking to the CEO of its investment board after this.